The Safety Doc podcast is in part brought to you by Sprigio.com. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Safety Doc podcast. This is podcast number 1, and I am the Safety Doc. My name is David, and I have a PhD in educational leadership and policy analysis from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. You can see back there I got my old Bucky sign up on the wall. And I have served as a school administrator for a number of years, a safety consultant, long ago was a firefighter, author, number of things to do with school safety. And my purpose in this podcast is to talk bluntly about school safety because there's a lot of hysteria around school safety. Actually, following the Sandy Hook massacre, I was on PBS and did a presentation about the empirical science of school safety, and that we need to be vigilant, but things aren't as bad as what they seem. So we're going to talk about that during these weekly podcasts, and let me give you the format. So a little bit about my week in safety, and then we are going to look at some interesting facts having to do with a crisis event from history. And I'd love to dig into things. I've got a book right here, The Unthinkable by Amanda Ripley, a wonderful book among many that I have regarding safety. And I have various little facts I want to pull out, I think, that are going to be interesting to you, give you perspective, make you think twice about some of the perceptions that you might have or others might have about safety. So we're going to just touch on some of those things. And then every week I harvest headlines from across the nation, headlines about school safety, things that are in newspapers, on social media. And we're going to talk about maybe one or two in depth, and I'm going to dissect it, typically finding areas that might not always align very well with what really is happening. Because what we know about safety in general is safety is irrational. In school safety, there's a lot of irrational thought, just we're rational beings, and we tend to have hysteria. So let me help you through that. And this broadcast is just going to make you better at being able to identify the changes in everyday routines, the little variations from the flux, where being skilled in safety and understanding safety can really come into play to help you and to help those that you care about, especially if you're a parent and have kids going to school. So let me get right into it. One of the things too is when I've conducted research and when I talk about things, I typically don't use sources such as Google Scholar. I dig a little deeper. And if you go to jurn.org, and I will put links with each of these podcasts, you can find things that are more empirically based. I'd love to read what's coming out from current doctoral students because it's typically the most current stuff and it hasn't been manipulated by media or other interests. So this podcast is going to be about 30 to 40 minutes long. And it then will be put into an MP3 format and will be available on MP3 podcast host site, which I have yet to determine. So we are in that development stage. So, but again, here's our inaugural broadcast. This broadcast, or I should say the podcast is being, it's possible in part because of the support of Sprigio. Sprigio is a company, S-P-R-I-G-E-O. I'll have it linked out in California. Joe Bruze is the CEO, and they're prevalent across the nation in bullying and school safety education and also reporting and threat reporting systems. So Joe's a great guy. If you looked, he's also an author. But Sprigio is doing wonderful things for safety, and they are a partner that to help bring this podcast to you. in helping with the fees for hosting and also to channel some of the material my way and to make sure that we have an audience. Spragueo has a robust audience and that they can then spread this podcast along with you. Please subscribe and tell your friends so you can listen in. And if anything, I've been told I have a good personality and that I'm interesting, so we'll see. Let's talk, though, about some facts. One is in Amanda Ripley's book, The Unthinkable. She analyzes, again, several tragic events and then looks through those for making sense, trying to understand what happened and also irrational moments. And something that happened during 9/11, so with the Twin Towers. One is safety drills at 9/11. A number of the people that were identified as kind of their floor chairperson for safety, those folks didn't know what to do. In interviews, post the attacks, they said when they had drills, and this happens a lot, and I put this in my research, when they had drills, they would announce a drill, it's a safety drill evacuation, and what happens is people would kind of gather stuff from their desk and whatever, work their way into a lobby area and then just kind of wait. They wouldn't travel down the stairs, they wouldn't do things like that. They would wait for the announcement, which always happens, okay, drill's over, go back to your desk. And an interesting part with 9/11 and the interviews that Amanda had done with survivors who would exit the Twin Towers is one of the behaviors, and this seems completely irrational, but one of the behaviors of survivors was to spend about 4 minutes gathering personal belongings before heading out to the lobby area, and then eventually for the floors that did start to head downstairs, to the first thing, imagine this, that your response is, it's disbelief, because it's not rational that the towers are going to be attacked by a plane. It's not rational that they're going to collapse. It's not rational that the fire department and the suppression systems aren't going to be able to handle whatever might be going on. So the initial response in a tragedy, and redundant across tragedies, is a sense of denial that this really isn't happening. And you need to be able to snap out of that denial phase. That's Rory Miller also has produced books, is a wonderful safety expert, and he talks about the same phenomena where it's almost like you need 4 times in per Rory to really get the hang of something. So like if you're a police officer, after you've seen something, you're brand new, you've seen it like the 4th time, then by the 5th time you see it, you have this knowledge to build off, and you know how to respond and how to process it. So these first time kind of way out there events, it's really hard to process, to get your head around them. So again, think about this fact that a majority of people that had exited the building spent what they calculate out to be about 4 minutes gathering items from their desk. So if I were to gather things, here my voice recorder, my Badger mug, I probably would let the pens stay though, but maybe my ship here of the Edmund Fitzgerald would come with me, and finally my coffee cup. So, but another aspect that survivors of the towers, there's actually a survivor group that goes out and they meet and they talk about people who work in high rises and what to expect if something happens in that high rise, like if it's attacked, what to expect. Because they said, if we would have known this, if someone would have told us, we would have responded faster, would have probably been calmer, would have methodically processed it. And so as we talk about that, knowing what to expect. So I mean, just think about that. this survivors group, and Amanda talked about meeting with the survivors group, and she thought it would be more, the emotions of the event and the tragedy. But it was really about the survivors getting together and meeting to empower others of saying, here's what you need to know in case this happens to you. So, and again, it's that, you might have an initial reaction, and very typical because you're going to have this denial. You're going to have this initial reaction to kind of gather up belongings and to take them down, with you, gather your things. So, yeah, but yeah, think about that. Who would have thought? So let's move on. I did get a haircut today, so, and yeah, typically, and I have a pair of glasses have skulls inside, but they're not down here at the moment. But nonetheless, I can see you, you can see me. Let's keep going. The article I want to talk about today was published on November 10th in the Standard Banner in Jefferson City, Tennessee. I'll link this out. I have the article right here. I printed it off. You can see on the front there, the good folks at Jefferson City High School. And what they did is the headline is Tabletop Exercise Simulates Shooting Incident at JCHS, Jefferson County High School. They did tabletop exercise off-site. They did it at a community center, and their key was to go through their safety system and talk about what would we do if we had an active shooter in our district. They did this the right way. A lot of people don't. I'll get into that in another podcast. And as we look at headings, every day I get probably 10 headings in my Google alerts. But I want to talk about what they did right. They really had a terrific approach to this. So there are so many drills out there right now, and it's all of this drama, these simulations where kids and staff are all bloodied up and put into hallways as if they've been shot, and then police come in and run these multi-agency drills and fire an EMS and all of this other stuff of trying to, pretend there's an active shooter and things like that. And I'm telling you, that's not the way to go. Don't do that. First of all, multi-agency, everybody that's there at that moment, the next day, that's not the same group of people responding. Second, most school shootings don't play out that way. That's just not the way that it happens. And most of the shooting events have scenarios where either you don't have mass casualty. That's pretty rare. And the other aspect is you have this massive emotional trauma which is going on. I'm writing a book right now for Roman and Littlefield. I have a number of safety books which are being will be published, and there are lawsuits that have been filed by staff, by students, saying I've been traumatized because of these outrageous drills. Where I'm walking through and I'm seeing a classmate with covered in a bucket of fake blood, and even the responders are being traumatized by these events. Police officers. Kent Williams talks about the trauma. He's a police officer that officers go through. Not specific into the drills that I'm talking about, but we think this is the way to teach it, is to get hyper-realistic. But we do not teach fire drills that way. We don't set buckets of waste paper on fire and turn the sprinklers on and tell kids to good luck getting through the hallways, and this is our drill, and plus, by the way, the firefighters are going to be running in as you're running out. We don't run tornado drills with huge barn fans at the end of a hallway and people shoving gravel into them, in debris, so you're being pelted as you make your make your way down to your crouch area for safety. I mean, we don't do things like that. We shouldn't do it for safety in this interagency response. And again, there's much more to that. It doesn't play out that way. It doesn't play out that way. It causes a lot of trauma. What they're doing here in Jefferson City is awesome. They have a tabletop. They've taken it off site. You can Google tabletop exercise, get some ideas for how to do that. Something that I do. They held it at the public library. So And their philosophy is, hey, there's no wrong answers. We're going to talk about what would we do. So they go through, they bring kind of their safety manuals, they bring their school team, their administrators, some teachers, fire, EMS, and they're all there. And they have, big table. We can see it out here on the, they have a map. It looks like of the school, and they're talking. So they're saying, and they point out in this article, nice job in this article saying, really it's about 10 minutes that something like this would last, which is true. I mean, it's about 10 minutes. That's research. That's proven. So you don't need to plan out for an active shooter event that's going to be taking, an hour. It just does not happen that way. Again, about 10 minutes. So they're looking at, what would we need to do during that first 10 minutes? So they're saying call 911 from a landline. Yeah, that's good. It's good if you can do that. If you use a cell phone, though, it's going to be just as effective. They kind of get into a little bit of the hype in the article of saying, well, cell phone lines might not be reliable and things like that. Well, yeah, not today. Yes, they are. Yeah. So, I mean, if you have a cell phone, you have a cell phone. Use it. So, it used to, back in, 10, 15 years ago, yeah, towers would get overwhelmed, things like that. It doesn't happen. It's not the way it is today. So they were talking about that there would be a perimeter that would be set up, and that they would be then, so here's a statement. Here's from the article. It was suggested by some that frightened parents could cause a major problem. The best plan for dealing with them would be to send them to the nearest secured site. Yes, because parents are going to descend upon that school the moment they're getting texts from their kid saying, hey, something's not right here. Those parents are going to descend. It happened at Columbine, where clogged the arteries, the access to the school for emergency responders. It happened at Newton. It happens. So if you can talk and you know that this is going to be a problem, that's one, it's a problem. The second part is then you go out and you tell the parents, hey, this is going to be your first response. We talked about kind of that irrationality, that response of the thing that I need to do is get to the school. Well, that's not the thing you need to do, because if you do that, you're going to block that access to the school by emergency responders. You don't want to do that. Plus, I mean, you're not going to be thinking rationally as you're driving to school, and you're not going to probably be driving safely. And but what they're doing here is they're saying we're going to identify a site, and we're going to let parents know where that site is, and that they could go to, and then we will get information to them at that site. That's a great idea. It's a little bit tricky, because if you get a site that's too close to the school, that site might be within a secured perimeter, and people aren't going to be able to get to that. So it's best, this is what I imagine. Start of the year, and it's in the handbook and all of that, and you're getting it out and making sure, if something like this happens, parents, we are going to communicate, through the police, with you, and through social, media and the news. You'll get information, but we want you to go to this location. Maybe it's going to, you work it out. It's going to be where you have a lot of parking, a lot of access, things like that, whatever it is. And you're going to go to this, to this location, and then we will have someone that we will send there to meet with you. And then either that will be a reunification location, or else we'll work with you on identifying what that is. But parents, we're not going to know until we fully know what the event is. If it involves one school, multiple schools, and we're talking about active shooter, but maybe it's a storm, maybe it's a freak storm that comes up and does damage, and then there's infrastructure damage, which is done too. And responders are prioritizing to how they're it's a school. What if a hospital's hit by a tornado, things like this. So I think if you let people know ahead of time, I know this from research, and that's where it comes into those 9/11 survivors. Let people know ahead of time what to expect. Let them know what to expect. Parents will handle this in a much more calm, collected way, even though the tragedy of what's unfolding, they know, hey, the school said there's going to be a perimeter. Okay, there's a perimeter. We're not shocked by that. We know that there's a site we're going to go to. Okay, we're going to go there. Someone's going to meet us, and they're going to let us know what's going on. So good job, Jefferson City. So they had a novel idea they came up with of they would contact their bus garage and then use their buses to block off arteries to the school so parents in media couldn't get in through those arteries, but yet they could unblock those so then they could let law enforcement and fire and stuff through. Not a bad idea. The reality is, no, it's not going to happen because by the time there's reasons for that. One is by the time you rally your bus drivers and get everyone together, the event has concluded at that time. Again, we're talking about 10 minutes. You know, it's not going to happen. The other part is you're probably going to need your buses available to transfer students, you know, from the school to an off-site location for unification with parents. So yeah, interesting, novel idea. So it's great. It's great you came up with that. But analyze it more and say, you know what? In reality, probably not going to happen. So, but that's good. It's good. I love to see things in here. And there's a statement that, you know, there's no wrong answer in this. You know, anything you say, let's evaluate individual ideas. Good job. Good job. That's what you need to do. Let me go to the last part of this. My goal again, 30-40 minutes on these because I know you are busy and I want to get this content down for you so you stay engaged. For an emergency such as this, we're talking active shooter, law enforcement leaders would put out an urgent call for all their off-duty officers. Mutual aid would be summoned. And people would respond. Yeah, that's true. That happens. And what that means, though, is that means that hundreds of responders, law enforcement largely, are going to be coming to this event, especially if it's like an active shooter. And they will be coming not only from 10 miles away, but from 50 miles away. And this always happens. Always happens. There were literally hundreds of responders to the Sikh temple shooting in Oakville, Wisconsin that came from all over. So that's something else. You think about parents descending upon a school. And a lot of these responders are coming by the time the event has concluded. And then the benefit, though, that's not mentioned in the article is how you're going to utilize those responders then, you know, through your local police force. Maybe have those responders staged somewhere, and those responders then can help with reunification. And can help to sweep the site and to do, you know, anything that needs to be facilitated with investigations and, you know, so forth. Use them in that capacity and secure that perimeter. So not mentioned in this, but again, that's something that's going to happen if you tell parents ahead of time. Hey, I mean, there might be, you know, 2 hours after this event where maybe it was a student came in, you know, and fired a few rounds. And then, you know, surrendered. It could be, it's a crime scene, you know, staff aren't going to be able to get to their vehicles. Everything is perimeter off. There's, you know, 45 police cars from 45 different agencies, you know, that have responded, and they're helping, you know, through a chain of command with the local police. That's another thing in the article. They talk a lot to, I think, about what they're going to be doing as a school to manage this event and to manage these responders. And really, that's not going to be happening. The police are going to take over this event, the management, the control, instant command system of this event very, very rapidly. So as a school administrator, then, you know, your administrator or PR person is going to be working with the officer, you know, maybe buildings and grounds, a top officer on things like, you know, joint broadcast, press releases to the media and updates and things like that. And the police are going to be asking, you know, questions of, you know, okay, you know, where's your student roster? And if we do have to do reunification, then you know, how can we both work together on that? But again, remember, initially the officers are there to take care of the threat of what's happening, but as a school, you don't have to come up with this plan of this binder of here's what we're going to work with on the police as we go through this event. The police are going to tell you how they need you to to help them. So again, it's like on that perimeter, for school, it's not your job to line the buses up into a circle, and corral around the school. Law enforcement is going to set up that perimeter. If they would happen to say, hey, we can use some buses, then they do. But that's law enforcement. That's not you. And then let's see here. Any last things here? Okay, they started this exercise by, the fire chief ran this. And the fire chief read the script out loud and talked about how the simulation would play out. And again, that's essential because there are these schools and law enforcement and get these ideas of let's just surprise everybody with this active intruder drill. We're going to come on campus and see how people respond to it. No, no, no. Eventually someone's going to do that, and a staff member or someone that has a weapon is going to pull it out and fire on someone that's conducting a drill because they're going to think it's authentic. So, but no, the fire chief talked about what to expect, which was great. So people on what to expect in this drill, there's going to be some curveballs we'll throw in as things develop. We're going to document things and we're going to look at it afterwards. But nice job with that. You just don't want to unfold it and then, not educate people as to what the purpose is and, again, what the activity is going to look like. I think this whole thing of we need to do the surprise factor with people and see how they respond. No, don't do that on an airplane. At the first flying, this is seat's a flotation device and you do this and this and this. It's there to let you know ahead of time what to expect. That there's going to be the doors here, and you go out and things like that. It's to let you know. It makes sense, right? And so I think that's it. I want to just say though that I commend. Now I'm going to be looking at articles. Some of them are pretty out there. And I really want to commend the star or the standard banner here for this article, and Jefferson, the Jefferson City high school folks here and the district for putting this on the way that they did with the interagency. Really well done. Well done. Link to this article, read this article, get in contact with these folks if you want to talk about drills happening in your own district. Because I'm telling you that these high drama simulations, which are becoming the norm, they're not rare. This is the norm now. You can expect these types of drills. These tabletop the tabletop that I just talked about through JCHS, well done. This is the way to talk about safety and to study safety and safety response. So, all right, I'm going to wrap it up here. And again, I'm thankful for Sprigio. And Sprigio is a California-based company, and they are helping to support me, the safety doc, David, as I talk to you every week about school safety, some safety facts, safety at large. Sprigio, SPRIGEO.com. Contact them, contact Joe. Prevalent in across half the nation, rapidly growing, not only for reporting software, but for professional development for educators. Joe and Sprigio recently held a conference with the top middle school administrators in America to talk about the issues facing middle school from a safety perspective. So the great team at Sprigio, growing, bringing safety, bringing it in the correct manner, really focusing on accessible interfaces for students, all students, including students with disabilities. Just can't say enough about the great folks at Sprigio. So My name, again, David Perodin, the safety doc. And this was our first podcast. Hey, we got it down, 30 minutes. See you here in about a week. So stay safe.